I intended to stand by my husband's side, even if I were treated like a servant by my mother-in-law, even if my husband didn't protect me from such a mother-in-law. However, my husband changed after my brother-in-law, who was doted on by my mother-in-law, had an accident.
"You're done, half paralyzed."
My husband ridiculed our unfortunate brother-in-law. Not only that, but my husband joined forces with my mother-in-law to mock me and betray me. I won't let it end like this, no matter what. Holding my brother-in-law's hand, I swore revenge against my husband and mother-in-law. My name is Mia, and I live with my husband Kent while working together. Honestly, I'm overwhelmed with work and house chores every day, and I don't have any time for myself. The reason is that I'm frequently summoned by my in-law, who lives just a few tens of minutes away from my home, and despite both of us working, my husband doesn't do any housework at all. I'm not seen as a daughter-in-law to my mother-in-law, but rather as a mermaid. "Mia, today is your brother-in-law's hospital visit," my mother-in-law calls me early in the morning on my day off. My role is to take care of my brother-in-law's daily needs on my day offs. Before, I was practically forced to drive the car like a taxi driver, but now I'm taking care of my half-paralyzed brother-in-law. "I'm always sorry, Mia." I shook my head in response to my apologetic brother-in-law. "I'm doing it because I want to, so please don't worry," I replied with a smile. But my brother-in-law had a somewhat dark expression. Before the accident, my brother-in-law was my mother-in-law's favorite. He graduated from a prestigious university and got a job at a large company. He was kind and gentle to everyone, without any discrimination, and had a calm personality. My mother-in-law was so obsessed with him, it was as if he was her only son. As a result, my husband, who is the second son, was completely ignored. Furthermore, there were times when I was angry at my mother-in-law for her hurtful attitude towards my husband. That's why I've always had the desire to support my husband. However, the attitudes of my mother-in-law and husband changed drastically when my brother-in-law, who had an accident, became confined to a wheelchair. "Honestly, I wish you would leave the house already. Becoming a disabled person who can't even earn money is a disgrace to the family." Despite all the help we've received from my brother-in-law until now, my mother-in-law treated him like an unwanted intruder, which was incredibly cruel. In addition to that, my husband started mocking my brother-in-law in agreement with my mother-in-law.
"So he's paralyzed and can't even move one hand, huh? Even if you graduate from a good university, it's all over when you can't walk anymore, right?"
When I think about my brother-in-law, who can no longer move his legs due to the accident, I couldn't understand how those two could say such things. Unlike my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law was kind to my husband as well. However, despite that, my husband made remarks that further cornered my brother-in-law.
"Once the hospital visits are over, I hope he'll leave the family home. We can take care of my mother on our own, and he's just a nuisance, a useless disabled person after all."
I couldn't tolerate those words and found myself arguing with my husband. I explained to my husband that my brother-in-law has done so much for us in the past, and his injuries were simply the result of an unfortunate accident, so we shouldn't use such words towards my brother-in-law, who treated my husband equally, unlike my mother-in-law. I also explained how I've been treated by my mother-in-law all this time. I was subjected to verbal abuse and forced to work as a chauffeur on my day offs. Still, the reason I went along with my mother-in-law's demands was because I hoped my mother-in-law would change her attitude towards my husband and that she would acknowledge me even just a little. However, no matter how much I pleaded, my husband didn't understand. Due to my brother-in-law's accident, the way my husband was treated by my mother-in-law, which was dismissive until now, suddenly changed, and she started prioritizing my husband. As a son, it's natural that he would feel happy about it to some extent. But for me, even though I understood those feelings, I could never emphasize with them. The sudden and extreme change in her attitude was so appalling. My mother-in-law was never a personality worthy of commendation, but I never expected my husband to change so drastically. Come to think of it, my irresponsible husband often left the household chores to me. Nevertheless, I thought I saw my husband making steady efforts in his own way more than anyone else did. That's why my husband's sudden change in attitude was incredibly shocking and saddening. One day, while harboring a vague sense of frustration towards my husband and mother-in-law, my husband proposed a family trip.
I'm thinking of going on a Hawaii trip because I thought it would be nice for us to have fun for a change.
Indeed, as a working couple, we might have the means to go on a trip. But what about my brother-in-law, who is in a situation where going on a Hawaii trip is not possible? Will he be left alone at home? When I conveyed my concerns, I found out that a helper would be called in during the trip. However, I couldn't help but feel sorry for my brother-in-law, and I started feeling anxious about whether I would be able to enjoy the trip. But my husband said that it's necessary to have something to look forward to in this situation. A few days later, when I was still struggling to accept my husband's words, my brother-in-law called me. "I heard about the trip. Don't worry about me and go enjoy yourself. I'll be fine. You've always helped me with errands and hospital visits, so I want you to relax and have a good time once in a while." In response to such kind words, I jokingly replied that going on a trip with those two would probably be more exhausting than usual, and my brother-in-law laughed. Encouraged by my brother-in-law's kind words, I told my husband that we would go on a trip. And so, the preparations for the Hawaii trip began. However, it was up to me to handle the tour itinerary and communicate with the travel agency, while I was told by my mother-in-law about her preferred hotels and itinerary. However, her preferences kept changing, and I had to constantly adjust the plans. Finally, 2 weeks before departure, the plans for Hawaii were finalized. Once we arrived in Hawaii, I decided to go separate ways from my husband and mother-in-law. I was already tired of being used even before the trip, so I planned for this. I also needed some time for myself. So I endured the days leading up to the departure, thinking about the alone time I would spend in Hawaii. What I was working hard for was to help my mother-in-law with the preparations for the trip. I went to buy the items my mother-in-law needed after work, and on my day offs, I took her to the store so she could personally choose what she wanted. My mother-in-law's shopping trips took at least 4 hours. The 2 weeks leading up to the departure were incredibly busy while assisting my brother-in-law's hospital visits. And on the day of the trip, my husband and mother-in-law laughed and said to me,
"You stay behind and take care of your brother."
I was speechless at those words. I was completely dumbfounded. "I usually take care of my son, so this time I'll leave it to you. Hiring a helper costs money, but you do it for free." My husband and mother-in-law said that and burst into laughter. Seeing their attitude, I no longer felt any anger. My husband and mother-in-law headed to the airport without me, and I couldn't move from that spot even when their car disappeared from view. After unpacking my belongings at home, I headed to my in-laws' house. Using the spare key to enter the house, I told my brother-in-law about what had just happened while he was lying down in the living room. "I'm sorry for suggesting the trip, but I never expected it would turn out like this." I conveyed to my apologetic brother-in-law that this outcome was for the best. I didn't have high expectations from my mother-in-law from the start, but this incident also revealed my husband's true nature. I didn't know how to express these feelings, but it didn't matter. I reached a point where I didn't care anymore. As I looked down, I saw my brother-in-law's lower body and his immobile left hand, and in the next moment, my brother-in-law's body that was lying down suddenly stood up. His leg and arm were supposed to be immobile. "Huh? What's going on? How are you able to stand up?" I exclaimed in surprise, unable to hold back my voice. When I asked my brother-in-law, he explained that although he had been in an accident, he wasn't permanently paralyzed. It turns out that he had been wanting to remove my mother-in-law's excessive interference for a while. He had stayed at the family home because he had been convinced to continue living with her instead of living alone. "I can barely make ends meet. I can't afford to live alone." It seems that when my mother-in-law clung to my brother-in-law, he thought that if he refused, it would cause trouble to my husband and me. My mother spends money like water. I thought my life would be ruined if things continued like this. My thoughts were naive. At the time of the accident, my brother-in-law said he was thinking about how to escape from his mother without causing trouble to us. The turning point was when he lied and said he was paralyzed and unable to walk. That's when my mother-in-law's attitude changed. And just as he was wondering what to do with us, my mother-in-law began doting on my husband. Hearing that story, I felt genuinely sorry for my brother-in-law. "It's really frustrating, isn't it?" I answered with a wry smile, and my brother-in-law smiled back at me. "Well, shall we fight back then? What do you think? You can join in, Mia." I had no intention of letting it end like this. This incident truly disgusted me with my husband and mother-in-law. That's why, of course, I agreed to my brother-in-law's invitation. And 1 week later, my mother-in-law and husband returned from Hawaii. As soon as they arrived home, my husband called me.
"Hey, where are my belongings? The apartment was empty when I got back."
I told him that I had sent his belongings to my in-laws' house. "I made it so that you can live with your mother, just like you've always wanted, right?" I cheerfully conveyed the message to him, but my husband started complaining about how I had moved his stuff without his permission. Ignoring his reaction, I told him I wanted a divorce.
"This is too selfish. You want a divorce? What's gotten into you all of a sudden? What do you want?"
Now who is the selfish one? I finally started to argue back against my unreasonable husband. I confronted him, saying that he had betrayed my trust and how much I had endured for him. Additionally, during the preparations for the move, it came to light that my husband was committing even more wrongdoing. It turns out that he was secretly giving money to my mother-in-law while hiding it from me. Looking back, my mother-in-law's extravagant shopping spree continued even after my brother-in-law quit his job. I had always assumed that my brother-in-law was the one buying those things, but it turns out that he had significantly reduced his living expenses after quitting his job. That means my mother-in-law must have been getting more money from someone other than my brother-in-law. And the only possible person must be my husband. "You need to repay the money you've been using without permission. I know that $22,000 have gone missing in the past few months," I declared. In response, my husband offered feeble excuses like "but" or "because." I guess everything I said was true, so that he couldn't come up with any valid excuses. I told him that my brother-in-law had already moved out and I was living in a new place. I also made it clear that neither my brother-in-law nor I had any intention of dealing with him and his mother anymore. So it would be better for you to live with your parents' home. After all, your family consists only of your mother-in-law, right? I conveyed this message and was about to hang up the phone when I heard my husband's angry voice.
"You really are an insolent woman. I should have divorced you much earlier, just like my mother said,"
my husband shouted. Even in a situation like this, he talks about his mother? Although that was my honest feeling, his words were just about right for me now. I was grateful for my husband's straightforward declaration of divorce. Shortly after that, a pre-filled divorce form from my husband arrived at the law firm I hired. I submitted the divorce papers to the city office and quickly settled the financial matters. I was finally free. But this was only the beginning. "I've submitted the divorce papers," I reported over the phone. My husband responded in a curt voice. "Now that I don't have a nagging wife and a disabled brother around, things will be much better for me. This is the best outcome, huh?" my husband said, laughing. In response, I also laughed and replied, "You know, your brother-in-law has semi-retired and is now enjoying a relaxing life abroad. Isn't that something? Didn't you know he wasn't actually paralyzed? Oh, and your mother-in-law has some debts. So, good luck to both of you in repaying those debts." I thought I heard my husband's voice saying, "Huh?" but I pretended not to hear it, hung up the phone, and blocked his number. We're already strangers, so I don't need to care about him anymore. It was a month later when I received a letter from my ex-husband Kent through a lawyer. The contents of the letter were complaints and apologies about how he couldn't possibly live with my mother-in-law alone and an unthinkable proposal to remarry me.
"I often wish you were still with me. My salary alone can't support my mother anymore. It's impossible."
His letter was filled with such silly woes. Moreover, there were traces of tears in the letter that seemed to be from my ex-husband, which made me feel sick, so I threw it away immediately. It seems that my ex-husband lost all his assets to repay my mother-in-law's debts. However, it wasn't enough to repay the debts, and it seems that they ended up having to let go of the family home. As for what my mother-in-law is doing, she's desperately searching for my brother-in-law who went overseas. My brother-in-law told me that my mother-in-law has been contacting his acquaintances in the former company recently. "If things continue like this, my second son would suffer. I want to see my older son." She's apparently saying things like that while searching for my brother-in-law's whereabouts. However, none of my brother-in-law's acquaintances have any intention of telling her, and even if she finds out where my brother-in-law is, she wouldn't be able to go there. It seems that living with Kent has been so difficult for my mother-in-law. Since the divorce, I have been living a peaceful life in a new apartment for single persons. The current lifestyle is very calm, and I wonder what those hectic days were all about. It's been a year since the divorce, and for the past 6 months, I haven't received any contact from my ex-husband. And today, I received an email from my brother-in-law abroad after a long time. The content of the email was a report that my mother-in-law had finally gone bankrupt. It seems that my mother-in-law's name was even listed in the official gazette. So, I did some research and found out that Kent and my mother-in-law are currently living together in a small one-room apartment. Of course, they are not on good terms just because my mother-in-law refuses to let go of Kent. Kent is managing to make a living while in debt, all for the sake of my mother-in-law's uncontrollable spending habits. I'm truly disgusted by the two of them, so recalling the past doesn't make me angry at all. The revenge that my brother-in-law and I carried out, which we call a counterattack, seems to have had more than enough effect.
My name is Luna. I've been married for 3 years and my husband's name is Lucas. We used to live together when we were dating, but after getting married, we started living with my husband's father. This was because my husband's workplace was nearby. I continued working even after getting married, but I quit my job due to certain circumstances. That is because my husband's father needed care. My husband's father started showing signs of dementia about a year and a half ago, and the disease gradually progressed, requiring care. At first, we thought about putting him into a nursing home, but I ended up taking care at home due to my husband's wish. Luna, I beg you, I'll help with the care on my days off. I don't want to put my dad into a nursing home. I understand, but I've only been here for 2 years, and I don't think your father wants me to take care of him that much, so please support me as much as possible. I had never seen my husband plead like this, so I believed he would help me with the care. But when I actually started nursing, I noticed things that I didn't even imagine. Problems such as steps, toilet and bath at home. My father-in-law could still walk, so he was walking around the house, but he would stumble on steps and fall in the toilet because he couldn't support himself. Because of this, I discussed with my husband and decided to remodel the house. We would still be in debt, but we thought the safety of my father-in-law was more important than money. For the first month after the renovation, my husband took the lead in nursing. However, as time passed, my husband stopped taking care of his father, citing his work as a reason. And by the time a year had passed since we started his care, my husband stopped helping at all and even started going out on his day off. My father-in-law's condition kept getting worse, and I needed to help him with toileting and bathing. Finally, it was too difficult for me to continue nursing alone, and I decided to discuss it with my husband. You said you would help, didn't you? When was the last time you helped? How many months ago? He is certified as needing care, and I can't handle all by myself anymore. I'm not experienced. Realistically, I think it would be better to consider admission to a nursing home rather than home care. That's cruel. We decided to provide home care, and we should take care of him until the end. Then at the very least, I think we should ask professional caregivers. Your father needs assistance and is certified for it. We should be able to ask for help. I'm not physically strong enough, and I would like to leave certain tasks such as bathing to the professionals. In response to my suggestion, my husband didn't agree and went out before the conversation was over. Recently, I've noticed that he seems to be worried about money. However, it was difficult for me to continue caregiving alone, so without my husband's consent, I started to process for home care services. His father was certified as requiring care level 3, so it was arranged for a caregiver to come about 5 times a week for about an hour a day. A plan was also created within the scope of long-term care insurance, so I wasn't worried about the cost. However, a problem occurred on the first day of home care services. Nice to meet you. My name is Mira, a caregiver. I look forward to working with you from now on. Nice to meet you too. I'm looking forward to working with you. While the caregiver talked to my father-in-law, she taught me about the methods of nursing care. I learned a lot from her and felt good about the decision to hire her. However, my husband, who had been out, came home and... Luna, I didn't give permission for home care services. What is this all about? He vented his anger on me. But I've already told you that I'm at my limit with caregiving on my own. I didn't give any permission. Excuse me, Miss Caregiver. Please go home today. Even it was still within the time for home care services, he didn't listen to my attempt to stop him and sent the caregiver away. Why did you proceed with home care services without my permission? I'm the one who makes the decision here. You are an awful wife, not listening to what I say. As for caregiving, you can do it by all yourself. Don't waste money. We also have the loan for the renovation to pay back. Why won't you understand what I'm saying? I've told you multiple times that it's impossible for me to do it all by myself, Lucas. You've stopped helping with the caregiving, right? This isn't keeping your promise. Besides, the renovation was necessary. If your father falls and gets injured, caregiving will become even more difficult. You might not understand because you are not doing any. You've been caregiving for over a year now. What are you talking about all of a sudden? Plus, you are not working, so it's natural for you to take care of it, right? Who do you think is paying back the loan for the renovation? No matter how much I talked, my husband didn't understand. He actually believes that it's only natural for me to do everything by myself. After that incident, I only received home care when my husband was at work. Being able to talk to the caregiver, not only about care but also about the problems with my husband, and giving advice was a great help. After several months of this situation, one day, my husband suddenly offered to provide care himself. You haven't been out properly for over a year now. Go get your hair cut, go shopping, or something. I'll take care of him all day today. I gratefully accepted my husband's offer. I got a haircut for the first time in a long time, and then spent time sipping tea at a cafe I used to like. After spending about 4 hours alone, I felt uneasy, leaving the care to my inexperienced husband, so I decided to go home early. When I returned home, it was too quiet. My father-in-law was sleeping peacefully in his room. Thinking that my husband must be asleep from exhaustion too, I went to the bedroom, but he was not there. As I searched the house, I found an envelope placed on the dining table. When I opened the envelope, It contained a filled-out divorce paper and a letter. The content of the letter was, "Let's divorce, even after the divorce. Luna, please take care of my dad. I'm going on a trip for a week, so please submit the divorce paper when I'm on my way." That's what it said. I realized that his unusual offer to care was to kick me out so he could prepare for his trip. The fact that my husband had prepared the divorce papers in advance was honestly a surprise. Moreover, he wanted to impose the care of his father on me even after the divorce. I had no idea what my husband was thinking. I couldn't understand it at all, so I called my husband. "Lucas, I saw what was in the letter. There was also a divorce paper. What are you thinking? A trip abroad with who?" "I'm waiting to board a plane now. I'm busy, not like you, Luna. It doesn't matter who I travel with anymore. We are getting divorced. Please make sure to submit the divorce paper by the time I return from my trip. That's it." My husband one-sidedly ended the conversation and hung up. Just before the call was cut off, I heard a woman's voice calling my husband's name on the other end. It seemed my husband was with a woman he was going on an overseas trip with. We had only been married for 3 years, and I thought that my husband was having an affair. As I pondered about how he might have been fooling around with another woman while my mind was consumed by caregiving, tears of regret welled up in my eyes. "Luna," upon hearing my father-in-law's voice calling out to me as I wept. Recently he had been struggling to remember my name, but today, for the first time in a long while, he called it out. I had been worried whether my husband had really taken care of him while I was away, so I went to see him immediately. "Father, are you okay? Was everything okay while I was out?" "Ah, Luna. Is the caregiver coming today?" Today my father-in-law seemed quite fine and capable of having a coherent conversation. "Can dementia actually get better?" "She's not coming today. She'll be here tomorrow morning." "I see. Then could you bring me some paper and a pen?" My father-in-law, who was virtually unable to write anymore, was unusually fine today and seemed different from usual. I had heard that writing could help alleviate or prevent the symptom of dementia, so I decided to let him do what he enjoyed. I handed him some paper and a pen, and he began to write something. However, I couldn't see what he was writing. When he finished writing, he put the paper in an envelope and handed it to me. "Give this to the caregiver when she comes tomorrow." After telling me this, my father-in-law went back to sleep. Was this some sort of dementia training exercise with Mila? Although I was curious about the contents of the letter, I decided not to see. A few hours later, when my father-in-law woke up, he seemed to have completely forgotten about what had happened earlier, and he couldn't even remember my name. I wondered what on earth had happened. That night, after my father-in-law had gone to sleep, I found myself deep in thought as I went through the letter and divorce papers from my husband again. Looking back on my husband's behavior, I realized there may have been several suspicious actions. As I had only talked about caregiving with him, I hadn't paid attention to what was happening with him personally, and I had missed even the smallest signs. If my husband was indeed cheating, part of me wanted to get a divorce as soon as possible and leave, but I couldn't do that considering my father-in-law. Plus, I had been unable to work while taking care of him, so I was worried about not having enough money to live on my own if I got divorced. As the morning dawned, I still hadn't come to conclusion. Mira came by in the morning. After briefly greeting her, I handed her the letter I had received from my father-in-law yesterday. Upon reading the letter, Mira, the caregiver, approached me with a troubled look. As a caregiver, I'm here to help, but I also consider you as a friend, Luna. Cases like those are more common than you'd think. I'm here to help. Could it be that the letter is about me getting a divorce? Yes, it seems that Mr. Henry noticed something was off about you and informed me. He wrote in the letter asking me to help in his stead. There's more written in the letter, but I'll explain that later. Since we have limited time before your husband comes home, let's take immediate action. Saying so, Mira called another caregiver and asked them to take over Mr. Henry's care. Alright, let's go. I followed Mira, and we ended up at a law firm. Mira, why are we here? You'll understand once we are inside. Even though I didn't understand, I decided to follow Mira. Thank you for coming today. I'd like to discuss a request I received from Mr. Henry, primarily regarding the matter of gifting property during one's lifetime to you, Luna. The lawyer handed me a document as he said yes. It was a notarized document. Mr. Henry had requested the lawyer to prepare this document by Mia. It stated that Mr. Henry would gift me $36,000 and his apartment during his lifetime. Stunned by this, Mira began to explain. On the first day of my home visit, Mr. Henry first brought up this matter. He expressed his gratitude towards you, Luna, but as you weren't adopted by him, he was unable to pass his assets on to you. Hence, he wanted to make a lifetime gift. I'm grateful. I need to express my gratitude to my father-in-law right away. Before we go back, there's one more place we need to stop by. After following Mira and making one more stop, we returned home. After I got home and expressed my deep gratitude to my father-in-law, he didn't seem to understand, but I kept expressing my gratitude. My father-in-law passed away 3 days later. It was a complication caused by his deteriorating dementia. I called my husband who was traveling abroad, but perhaps thinking it was about the divorce, he didn't not answer the phone. With no other choice, Mira, who had come to help, and I proceeded with the preparations. Amidst the gathering of relatives, my husband, the biological son of my father-in-law, not being there seemed to be a source of dissatisfaction for them. 2 days later, my husband came home obviously knowing nothing and was immediately interrogated by all the relatives. Of course, since I had also informed the relatives about my husband's infidelity, they were furious. Hey, help me out here. I swear, I'm not having an affair. I was just on vacation for a change of pace after doing caregiving every day. You can't lie twice. Even if you say you were doing caregiving, there wouldn't be such a fact, right? I know a fact that you went on that vacation with your mistress. You two were caught on the airport security camera acting like lovers. After I said that, my husband seemed to give up and silently accepted the harsh words from the relatives. Several days later, once things had calmed down, I filed for divorce. I planned to move to the apartment my father-in-law had gifted me before he passed away. As I was making preparations for that, my husband called. Luna, where are you? The beneficiary of that life insurance isn't me, it's you. All I was supposed to get was his life insurance. What are you going to do about this? What did you tell my dad while caring for him? You and that female home helper seemed close. You two should have been planned this together. It was your father's wish. Home helper Mira simply acted in accordance with his wishes. Oh yes, we are divorced, and I think you and your mistress will receive a notice from the lawyer soon. Please make sure to pay the consolation money. What do you mean we were divorced? That's right. Since you got my dad's life insurance, you can just consider that as the consolation money, right? So I don't have to pay anything. It seemed he had forgotten that he had left me the divorce papers to submit before he left for his overseas trip. I was also taken back by his way of thinking. The divorce paper was left by you with a letter asking me to submit them, wasn't it? Also, the life insurance is a precious thing I inherited from your father, not something I got from you. You should bear the cost of the consolation money. At my words, my husband was speechless and remained silent. Realizing that we weren't getting anywhere, I decided to hang up. Even after that, he called several times, but following Mira's advice, I changed my phone number. I still see Mira occasionally, even after my father-in-law passed away. She did more for my father-in-law and me than my real family, my husband. I am truly grateful to Mira. After a while, it seemed that the notice had reached my husband and his mistress, and I received a call from the mistress's lawyer. I went on a trip because I heard from Lucas that you were divorced. Even though I was unaware of the circumstances, I sincerely apologize for going on a trip when Lucas' father was having a hard time. I've already paid the compensation. I don't plan to meet Lucas anymore. That was how it was. I was expecting a refusal to pay the compensation, so I was surprised. I wonder why a reasonable person like her could have fallen for a man like my husband. Meanwhile, my husband ended up having to pay the compensation in installments. It seems Alia was quite wealthy and my husband, trying to keep up with her, spent nearly all his savings. Plus, I heard he even paid for the trip in a show-offy manner. Whether or not he exhausts his savings doesn't concern me. I intend to have him pay the full compensation even if it takes time. Since the family home was in my father-in-law's name, he won't have problems finding a place to stay. However, as there are remaining payments for the health innovation loan for elder care, it will likely be quite a burden in combination with the compensation each month. Even if it's deducted from my husband's salary, I don't think he'll have much money left to spend. It's known by all our relatives, so he can't ask for help either. I hope he reflects on his actions. I've moved to the apartment that my father-in-law gave me as a lifetime gift, and I'm living a comfortable life. I'm using the money I inherited from my father-in-law to study for a caregiving certificate. Mira is also helping me. Not only do I want to be a caregiver, but I also want to become a caregiver like Mira, who can support families.
Raised in a single-mother household, huh? That must have been quite a rough environment.
Absolutely! We can't possibly allow a girl who grew up in such a household to become our son's wife. Right now, I am facing the parents of my fiancé, and I am being bombarded with unbelievably rude words. They don't just ridicule me, they mock my mother too. Such an awful family. I will decline the marriage proposal from my side. I will give them the perfect retribution and throw them into the depths of hell. My name is Emma, and I am 27 years old. I only have my mother in my family. My father passed away in an accident when I was a child, and he left us behind. When my father passed away, my mother did not show any tears. She was always smiling in front of me, even as I was sobbing uncontrollably. I was able to graduate from the law department of a national university thanks to my mother, who worked so hard for me. Currently, I am working as an employee of a leading company and spending busy days. My fiancé, Michael, who is 3 years older than me at 30, proposed to me 1.5 years into our relationship. After he made a strong approach towards me at work, I decided to marry him because I wanted to put my mother at ease, even though I thought it might be a little too early. And today is the day to go to greet his parents about our marriage. I'm so nervous. Do my clothes look weird? You're fine, Emma. You always worry too much. But, Michael, you said your parents are very distinguished people. They're what people call wealthy. It seems that it's not so much my dad, but my granddad who was really something. That's right. His parents are what you would call wealthy. His grandfather had a great success as an entrepreneur and left a huge inheritance when he passed away. It seems that his father is living off the inheritance left by his grandfather. Will it be okay? I chose this gift from a well-known place, but do you think they'll like it? It's fine, it's fine. The important thing is that we brought something. Geez, I'm genuinely worried, you know. He's just going back to his parents' home, so he's more relaxed than me. I'm so nervous that it feels like my heart is going to jump out of my mouth. Have a bit more sense of urgency. This is a greeting to announce our marriage. As I was getting irritated at his carefree attitude, a mansion like none I'd ever seen before appeared before my eyes. It's big, as expected. When I muttered that under my breath, he snorted proudly in response. Granddad was something else. Dad and the others are waiting. Let's go in quickly. As we entered the entrance together, the large door opened automatically, and his parents greeted us. Welcome! You're Emma, right? We've heard about you from our son. Nice to meet you. I'm Michael's mother. Yes, nice to meet you. My name is Emma. You're so lovely. Come in, come in. I'll make some tea. His mother was calm and smiling throughout. My anxiety and tension eased somewhat. His father also treated me kindly, but... So, you're colleagues with Michael, huh, Emma? That's impressive. A woman working for that company. Thank you. I was bothered by the expression, a woman, but I took it as a compliment and responded well. However, as the conversation progressed, I felt more and more out of place. Well, but deciding to marry Michael, you have quite the courage, Emma. Huh? What do you mean? Michael's parents, in other words, us, we're wealthy. Normally, one would feel intimidated by the difference in status and be apprehensive about marriage, you know. Maybe some people might feel that way. Michael's father seemed to be under the impression that they were some special entity and did not hesitate to explain the differences in status. Michael's mother, who had been calm until a while ago, began to reveal her true nature as the conversation progressed. Indeed, my family wasn't particularly wealthy, but as you can see, and it's a bit awkward to say this myself, I'm a beauty. Don't you think I match well with my husband? Oh, I see. Emma, you're amazing! To decide to marry Michael with your looks! I couldn't possibly do it! I couldn't tell if her words were sarcastic or genuine. I sent him a glance, seeking help, but he didn't seem to care at all. Moreover, at some point, He even joined in and started teasing me with his parents. Emma, she has an average face, but she's good at her job. I think she'll make a good wife. She's highly rated in the company despite being a woman, and I think she can match me, right? Wait, was he always like this? When it was just the two of us, he seemed a little more calm and refined. Maybe because he's in front of his parents, his attitude has become bigger? While such doubts crossed my mind, I managed to keep the atmosphere of the place with a forced smile. Just then, Michael's father suddenly asked his son, "By the way, Michael, have you greeted her parents yet?" "Of course, I've taken care of things like that, so don't worry." I presume Emma's parents are quite ordinary folks. She doesn't have a father, but Emma's mother seems like any other mother. Upon his reply, Michael's father's eyebrows subtly moved. She doesn't have a father? Emma, what's the situation? Surprised by Michael's father's sudden transformation, I desperately explained the situation. My father passed away in an accident when I was little, and since then my mother has been raising me. So you're saying that you come from a single mother household? Yes, that's correct. I still live with my mother. When the explanation was over, Michael's father had a deeply thoughtful look on his face. Michael's mother also visibly turned sour. Then the two of them started to whisper as if having a secret discussion. Is there a problem? I asked cautiously, puzzled by their behavior. At the same time, Michael's mother uttered something surprising. That might be a bit difficult. What do you mean? Michael, you should reconsider marrying this girl. Mom will find you a girl with better conditions. Wait, what are you talking about? Michael's mother stared at me with cold eyes. A girl from a single mother household is not suitable for Michael, right? Michael's father next to her immediately chimed in. Indeed, Michael. Regardless of her career success, coming from a single mother household is problematic, isn't it? I've advised you many times to be careful when choosing a spouse, but you... It felt as if I was being treated like a defective product. It was completely unexpected to be told such a thing by my fiancé's parents, whom I met for the first time. I was left dumbfounded in surprise. Then my fiancé, Michael, uttered words I couldn't believe, making me doubt my own ears. Oh, so she's disqualified after all. I thought she could barely make the cut. But I'm already 30, and it would be a hassle to find someone else now, so I'll settle with Emma. What? Michael, aren't we getting married because we love each other? You didn't really think I was getting married for a reason like that, did you? Laughing uproariously, he threw out those cold words. All I want is a wife who can take care of the household like a housekeeper. It's impossible for me to truly love someone with a home environment like yours. That's exactly right. Michael's mother agreed at his cold words. Michael's father was also nodding and laughing scornfully. I can't believe this. I thought he alone had decided to marry me out of genuine love. I was left speechless by this unexpected turn of events. As I lost my words, Michael's parents launched further attacks. Single mother household? You're shameless to think of marrying my son despite being raised in such a terrible environment. Absolutely! We can't let our son marry a girl raised in such a low-level household. At that moment, the emotions I had been holding back exceeded their limit. Rather than shock, my anger surged at the insult to my life and my precious mother. I couldn't hold it back anymore. Slowly, I lifted my face and calmly conveyed it to them. Understood.
Let's call off the wedding, and please leave here right now."
Not only Michael's parents, but even he looked taken aback by my statement. He asked me in confusion.
Emma? What are you suddenly saying?
"What? I'm asking you to leave, don't you get it?"
What are you talking about? Why do I have to be told that by you? I don't understand."
Following his words, Michael's parents started making a fuss.
Exactly, we don't have to be dictated to by a poor person like you.
"Emma, not only is your family background poor, but your attitude is also terrible. What are you thinking?"
Shut up!
I hit the desk hard with my hand and stood up.
Do you know who owns the land this house is built on? What are you talking about? This is the land left to us by my father.
Oh, from your father?
Can you prove that this land is yours?
Proof? Asked for evidence, Michael's father started to panic. They seemed to have never checked it, whispering to each other.
What's the problem?
If you own the land, there should be proof, right? Like documents from the inheritance.
We don't have anything like that. This house was built by my father, and this land was his from that time. That's why he could build it.
When Michael's father started talking, Michael's mother also raised her voice.
First of all, what are you suddenly saying? It's rude for a commoner like you to talk about someone else's land.
Emma, stop it. Just because my parents didn't allow our marriage, don't start making strange accusations. It's a waste of time to go on like this. I decided to tell them the truth. It seems you don't know, so I'll tell you. Your grandfather only had a lease agreement with my grandfather.
What? What's that lease agreement?
It seemed to be a word he heard for the first time, and Michael's father tilted his head in confusion. I was exasperated and explained it carefully so that even this foolish family could understand. A lease agreement is a promise that you can use the land. Currently, you are borrowing the land for free, and when the contract period ends, it will be returned to us. In other words, your grandfather is only temporarily borrowing this land from my grandfather.
No, that can't be. I've never heard of such a thing. You're lying.
Are you saying I'm lying? That's not the case. By the way, we have that contract, and we have already confirmed whether it is valid or not. Michael's father was shocked and flustered by the unexpected truth.
No, it's a lie, right? After all, you're from a single-parent family, and your father passed away.
That doesn't really matter. My maternal grandfather was a landowner and lent land to many people. The reason my mother and I have been able to live so far is because of my grandfather's support.
Do you own so much land?
Yes, I majored in law at college, so I was researching the land lease with my mother. At that time, we found out that this place where you live is also my grandfather's land. Do you understand the situation? The three of them were gaping and stunned. They were desperately trying to grasp their situation, but I conveyed the matter regardless. Given the circumstances, could you leave this land quickly? As stated in the contract, the period of free rental ended quite a while ago. I think my mother sent a notice in advance.
A notice? No such thing came, right, Mom?
Michael's father's gaze seeking agreement. However, Michael's mother replied with a pale face. I noticed that an envelope was coming every month, but I didn't really understand what it was about, so I thought it was unnecessary and threw it away. Could that possibly be?
That's the notice,
I chimed in with a broad smile. We've been issuing notices for more than 2 years now. What will you do? Will you pay 2 years of land rent in a lump sum, or will you move out? You have to decide.
Wait, Wait a minute. There's nothing we can do if you suddenly say something like that. Suddenly? We've been urging you for quite some time. Please do something.
Michael's father pleaded desperately, begging on his knees.
Recently, we've been suffering huge losses in stocks, and our assets are just a tiny amount. We were planning to rely on Michael from now on.
But there was no room for leniency anymore. I was thinking of settling things amicably if the marriage was decided and if I received an apology about the notices. But since you've made a fool of my mother, I've reached my limit.
I'm sorry, but I won't allow you to squat on this land for free anymore.
With that refusal, Michael's parents began to tremble. The only one who was calm until now started to change his attitude as if that was the right moment.
Hey, Emma, can't you stop it now? I'm going to marry you, so please?
What are you saying now? So what?
So let's forget about this matter.
If we get married, there won't be a problem with this land, right? Right? Is this guy an idiot? I can't imagine marrying such a lowly person at this point. I don't need a man who insults his fiancée along with his parents.
I'm sorry, but I have to decline. There's no way I'm going to become part of a family with a conceited man like you and your deluded, naive parents.
At my words, he looked like he was about to cry.
Please forgive me. So what if we're a single-parent family? Do you think I'll stay quiet after you insult my mother? Parents who only care about public appearances are perfect for you. Wait, Emma!
I glanced at him chasing after me, and I left my ex-fiancé's house. This was a place with many connections in various ways, but I thought I would never come here again. What happened to them afterwards needs no explanation. His parents boasted of being wealthy, but in reality, they hardly had any assets left. The fact that they couldn't pay the land tax for 2 years in a lump sum means they're not wealthy at all. As a result, they were forced to leave their land, sell the house their grandfather built with pride, and use that money to pay the land tax for 2 years in a lump sum. They seemed to have continued their previous lifestyle for a while, but apparently the money ran out quickly. It seems they are now living in a small apartment as a family of 3. The story spread quickly within the company, and he lost his place. However, his parents rely on their son's income, so it seems he can't quit.
Emma, I'm sorry. I'll cut ties with my father and mother. Let's live together, just the 2 of us. It's okay to be a single-parent family. I'll take care of your mother. Let's live together, you, me, and your mother. How about it?
I sometimes get romantic emails from him, but of course, I'm not replying. I have absolutely no love for him, and I probably will never believe his words. He is being watched with curious eyes at the company and has become the talk of the town. I would really like him to continue to suffer in this harsh environment.
They always say there are risks with late-age pregnancies, don't they? Like the child might end up less intelligent? There's no way I can raise a failed child. We are getting a divorce. If you want to give birth, you raise the kid on your own. In stark contrast to my joy of being pregnant, my husband spouted these words. In the end, to my husband, wife and child were nothing more than accessories to his life. If he deemed there to be a defect in that accessory, he wouldn't hesitate to throw it away. Fast forward 30 years. When my ex-husband met his daughter, who was born safely and grew up healthy, He looked like he was seeing something unbelievable. What? Your daughter is? No way. It's a lie, right? My name is Harper. My life hasn't had any notable events, and the days I have spent were quite ordinary. I was born to very ordinary parents and followed a conventional path to get a job. However, I did fairly well in my studies and was able to go to a university with high deviation scores. I can't thank my parents enough for allowing me to go to university. Even in these times of recession, I was lucky enough to get a job at a well-known major company. I've been working hard to show my gratitude to my parents. Before I knew it, I was already 30. I started to think about getting married soon. On one such day, Harper, I like you. Please go out with me. The one who confessed to me was my coworker, John, who was 26 years old and started working at this office after me. I once asked him, why me, who is older? You're kind, capable at work, and intelligent, Harper. I can't find a flaw in you. You're amazing. He could not have been more complimentary about me. And after dating for a year, we got married when I was 31. We were hoping for a child and lived our married life with that intention. And I had even changed my job so that I could have a child at any time. But as the years cruelly passed by, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, we were never able to have a child. I thought we should just give up on having a child and enjoy life as a couple. Just as I turned 41, I heard a surprising fact from the doctor. Congratulations, you're pregnant. Unbelievably, I heard the words I had been longing for 10 years on my birthday. As soon as John came home, I told him with joy, but his reaction was unexpected. Are you serious? Pregnant? Now of all times? The words John spoke were completely opposite to my joy. Huh? Aren't you happy, John? There's no way I'll be happy now. I don't want to say it, but how old do you think you are? You are 41. You are practically an old woman, he says, with an exasperated tone and a sigh. Giving birth at your age, aren't you embarrassed? Plus, it's late-age pregnancy. Why would I feel embarrassed? There's no reason to be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed and I don't like it. My wife being pregnant at 41, it's going to ruin my reputation. And then, he kept saying unbelievable things. They always say there are risks with late-age pregnancies, don't they? Like the child might end up less intelligent? There's no way I can raise a failed child. Even so, I want to have this child. Oh, really? In that case, we are getting a divorce. If you want to give birth, you raise the kid on your own. At John's words, my mind went blank, and I stood there stunned. The next day, the divorce papers were ready, and they were already signed. He was serious, not joking. I made a huge decision. Okay, I understand. Let's get divorced. I, who desperately wanted to have a child, decided to divorce John. As I filled out the divorce papers, he began to grumble. I'll tell you, because we are getting divorced. The reason I married you was that you were the most educated woman in our workplace. I thought that if I married you, I'd have a smooth-sailing married life. But I never thought you'd be this stupid. He had a tendency for educational elitism, wanting to increase his value by marrying someone intelligent. I was shocked to learn my husband's thoughts for the first time after 10 years of marriage. Since you are the one deciding to have the baby, you get the custody. I have no intention of paying child support or seeing the child. I don't want anything to do with you and your failed child for the rest of my life.
All right.
I didn't expect it to become such a hassle. If I'd known, I wouldn't have married you. It would be better for the child not to know about such a despicable father from the beginning. I don't even want to take his dirty money, and I even felt gratitude for John's statement that he had no intention of seeing the child. I decided to happily accept all of his proposals. After the divorce, I returned to my parents' home and managed to give birth safely with the help of my parents and others around me. My beautiful daughter had such beautiful eyes that I named her Iris. I was a little worried about the risks of late-age childbirth that John mentioned, but Iris grew up healthy and without any problems. She's strong and excels in sports. Her intellect surpasses even mine. The most wonderful thing is her kind heart, capable of considering others. She's a daughter too good for me, to the point I want to boast about her. To me, who's living a peaceful life with Iris, I feel truly fortunate to have been able to part ways with John. Before I knew it, I had completely forgotten about him and was living my daily life. After 30 years of divorcing him, one day, could it be Harper? John? We unexpectedly ran into each other at the largest general hospital in the county. I noticed John carrying some items, possibly for a patient visit, while I was clad in a patient's gown. He was surprised to find me at first, but when he recognized me, who was wearing a hospital gown, he laughed sneeringly. Huh? You are hospitalized? I don't know what disease you have, but you are not okay, right? Can a jobless daughter's mother afford the hospital bills? What are you talking about? Well, you gave birth after we divorced, right? It's known that children won't grow up properly if the mother is old. It must be tough if your daughter is still unemployed at 30. Plus, you're hospitalized. Your life's a mess. Immediately upon our reunion, he insulted me and referred to our daughter, Iris, as a sloth. Has he not changed at all over these 30 years? I was astounded to find that not only had he not changed, but he seemed to have gotten worse. I remarried soon after with a young, beautiful woman 20 years my junior. You see, a woman's appearance is more important than her educational background. My son takes after his mother. He's so handsome. People say he's got a future in showbiz. Without waiting for my response, he continued his bragging. I got promoted to section chief after divorcing you. When I was with you, I was stuck at the team leader level. Leaving you was the right decision. After our divorce, everything started going well for me. Ah, is that so? Well, good for you. If we hadn't divorced, I would have ended up taking care of a sick wife and a jobless daughter. I'm really glad. I was so astounded by his words that I fell silent. I knew that my silence would only make him more audacious, yet arguing with someone as low as him would feel as if I was stooping to his level, so I held my tongue. Just then, someone spoke up. Mom, what's going on? Are your tests done? Huh? Mom? Wait, don't tell me. A woman doctor appeared before me and spoke. It was my daughter, Iris. Oh, Iris. This man is... I was uncertain about how to explain John's presence to Iris, our daughter. In our lives, he had become non-existent. Iris had never even met him before. Yet, as if sensing something, she stared sharply at John. Even from a distance, I could hear you two talking. This is supposed to be a quiet place. I kind of figured out that this man is my biological father. You're John, aren't you? I can't believe you're my father. Huh? Iris, how do you know about him? Although I have no direct involvement with him, he's quite infamous in the hospital. His son is hospitalized with diabetes, yet he completely ignores the doctor's advice and brings in outside food. His wife also causes all sorts of problems. It's really been a handful. As a result of her hard work, Iris became a respectable internist. She's known in and out of the county as a skilled female doctor. On the other hand, there is John's son. His story is quite far removed from his bragging just a while ago. His face is shaking and turning bright red. Wait, didn't you say your son was going to enter the entertainment industry? If he improves, anything is possible. My son, he just loves to eat, that's all. Iris sighs at his words. Could you please throw away the food you are holding? It contains sweets and sweet drinks, right? John, if you don't follow our instructions any further, the hospital will have to consider its response. If you are my daughter, you should be able to cure my son. You are a doctor, aren't you? No. Even if you suddenly tell me I'm your daughter, it's honestly a nuisance. You are simply the father of a patient. Of course, you are neither more nor less than that. Rejected by his daughter, John's face turned even redder with anger. Just because you became a doctor doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Who do you think you are? Yes? I'm a section chief in a big company. A defective child is now a doctor, and so what? It seems like he is unconsciously showing off his pitiful state in his competition with Iris. He wants to make it clear that his position is above hers and make her comply. It's a low-level tactic, just as he used to. Harper, you are an old hag who needs to be hospitalized, and you've been single ever since I dumped you, right? You've never been able to beat me, neither in the past nor now. You are such a loser. John laughs coarsely. However, he's made a couple of misunderstandings, so annoying as it is, I decided to correct him. I'm sorry, John. I may not meet your expectations, but I'm wearing this hospital gown for a health check, not because I'm a patient. Besides, the reason I'm having a checkup is at the suggestion of my husband, the hospital director. Huh? Husband? Director? What? You're lying, right? John lets out a dumbfounded voice. To tell the truth, my husband is the director of this hospital. After the divorce, I immediately found a new job, of course, to support Iris. At the medical equipment manufacturer where I got my new job, I met my current husband and remarried. Despite being a stepdaughter, my husband doted on Iris very much. She grew attached to him and resolved to become a fine doctor like her father, which made her study hard. And she made her dream a reality and now works at my husband's hospital. You are lying. You remarried and your husband is a director and your daughter is a doctor. Why are you living a more blessed life than me? You of all people. Perhaps realizing that he's been completely knocked out, John mutters to himself while looking down. Mom, let's go. It's a waste of time to stay here. Huh? But John... Just leave him alone. We have nothing to do with that man. He was left alone by his own daughter, unable to move from the spot. Later, an event occurred that added insult to injury. His wife caused a big fuss in the hospital. Doctors told her, "This is beyond the limit, please stop." Apparently, she went on a rampage, resentful of being severely warned about bringing in food and drinks. The nurse who stepped in to stop her ended up injured, and the hospital took the incident seriously and forced his son to leave. In the end, no hospital would take in his son, and it seemed they had no choice but to provide home treatment. Even though he was forced to leave the hospital, John's son didn't change his lifestyle, so his condition worsened. One day, John suddenly came to Iris and seemed to have pleaded, "Please, help me." But she, "Why do I have to help someone I don't know?" "I am your father. You don't know me?" "What are you talking about? My father is the director of that hospital. You've been denying it since before I was born, and even when you reunited with my mother at the hospital. Don't make me laugh. Father? Really, you should be ashamed of yourself." It seemed that Iris completely rejected him. The son's medical bills are draining his savings, and his indulgent wife is not willing to cooperate. His family will fall apart if this continues. The reason why I know so much about this is because John came to negotiate directly with our family and talked non-stop about things I didn't want to hear. But my husband, the hospital director, interrupted John's talk. "Get out now. I'm going to call the police." Upon hearing this, John changed his attitude from the one who had been shouting so far and ran out of the house. By the way, the result of my health checkup was there was no problem. I was worried about my age, but I think it's thanks to my husband, the director, and my excellent daughter. I'm able to live a happy and healthy life every day because of them. Life is unpredictable. I want to make choices so that I don't regret them when the time comes. I think the decision I made that day and the path I chose were the right choices and the best decision for me.